Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another Thursday DCO Live. Russell, looks like you are already in. How you doing? Hope you're doing well. It is definitely starting to get cold down here in South Carolina. We have had a couple of days lows in the 40s. I think this morning, I think it was like 47 degrees when I got out there. So yeah, it's getting cold. It is getting cold, but this is when the fishing starts firing up. So if there is one thing good about this cold weather coming in, the fishing's going to start firing up. So, I appreciate everybody stopping by. It looks like we are really starting to gain some traction on this Thursday night live. So again, I really appreciate all you guys who are dropping in and even catching it on the replay after it goes up and gets published. So I appreciate all you guys. Brian, good to see you, buddy. Hope you're doing well. Hope you're doing well. Ooh, 37 this morning. Russell. Ooh, man, I'm not ready for 37. You can keep that. That is brutal. So, just to kind of recap what I've been doing about the last week. Never went fishing last week. I actually went up with the family to Fayetteville. We rented a house, and a lot of the family came in, and we saw my youngest son, Carter, who is in the Army. And so we just kind of spent the weekend up there. We had my oldest son and his wife and cousins and my in-laws, and I got to play golf for a couple of days and just kind of relaxed. We played cards, we played cornhole. It was a great time. Got to watch some football, and I know I'm probably going to get beat up here, but I don't think I ever told you guys that I'm a Cowboy fan, and it has been absolutely brutal this year. And I stopped watching at halftime. It has just been, oh gosh, it's just been hard to watch. But it's still football. I'll take that. And baseball playoffs, which is fantastic. I love watching all of that too. But I never fished last weekend. I will not have a video coming out this Saturday, but hopefully by midweek I will have something coming out. So I know I met up with a guy up on the water. It was actually two young guys in a boat a couple of weeks ago, and they were like, "Hey man, we were a little bit worried about you. We never saw a video." And I was like, "Well, you know what? Sometimes life gets in the way, and there's other things that I do. YouTube doesn't pay the bills yet, so still got to work and spending time with family, which I really enjoy doing. So no video coming out on Saturday, but go back and watch some older episodes if you guys are jonesing for a little bit of fishing videos. But also, the last time that I was out fishing, I was in my kayak, and you guys know that I have a Hoodoo Impulse 120 with a pedal drive. And the last time that I was out, every time I would pedal, it would almost sound like rocks were grinding. And come to find out, when I got home, I took my pedal drive and I set it up on my workbench, and I started kind of listening and taking the lower unit apart where the propeller is. And I noticed that the pin that the propeller sits on, that pin was hitting the screws that holds in that lower gear. I'm going to call it the lower end gear of that drive. And every time it would hit those screws, there were four screws, it would just sound like, I was basically grinding off the top of those four screws. So I contacted Hoodoo, sent them a little video, and said, "Hey, listen, I'm having an issue with my drive. It's really loud. It sounded like rocks grinding." And they said, "Send some pictures. If you can send a video, send a video." And so I sent a video off to them, and I was getting a little bit of play in that lower gear unit, which was allowing that pin to hit those screws. And Hoodoo warranted my drive. And when I talked to him, I said, "Is there any way that I can get that drive before the weekend, like midweek, because I have a fishing tournament on Saturday that I'm going to be in, and I need this drive?" And they said, "No problem." I actually got the drive today, and it is put together and ready to go for tomorrow. I'm actually pre-fishing the tournament tomorrow down at Garris Landing, just north of Charleston. And so, you know, Hoodoo, thank you so much. You guys are great. The warranty department, Holly in customer service, Jared in the warranty department, I really appreciate you guys. I know that at one time, I think you guys knew that I was a Hoodoo Pro staffer for them for about 2 years, and ended up parting ways with them on a good note. There was no ear feelings or anything, and it was all good. And I still chat with Holly every once in a while. And you know, this is why that I love their product and I love their customer service. You know, I just sent him the video, and within about 10 minutes, Jared was right back to me with another email and said, "Hey, I'm sending out a drive. You'll have it before the weekend." So, Hoodoo, thank you so much for sending that drive so that I can participate in that tournament this weekend. So, all right, guys. Well, enough catch up. Let's get into some fishing questions. So, if you guys have fishing questions, go ahead and throw them in the chat box. But I actually just got a question on my phone about, well, I'll show you, about 3 minutes ago. And this gentleman, he just got done watching a video and he said, just got into fishing, also been fishing the inlet. I keep getting my hook stuck in the oyster beds. What am I doing wrong? Do I need to move to muddy bottom using a Carolina rig? Okay, I actually get this question quite a bit, and very timely getting that literally 3 minutes before we started. So, no, don't move away from the oyster beds. Okay, the oyster beds is where you're going to find the bait fish, and wherever you find bait fish and shrimp moving around is where you're going to find your predator fish. Oyster beds are notorious for taking and stealing jig heads. There's a couple of things that you can do to keep yourself out of the oysters. One is you can use a popping cork. Try to figure out the depth and only run that popping cork maybe 12 inches or so and work around the oyster bed. That'll keep you just over the top, just like those bait fish are, floating and looking very natural right over the top of the oyster bed, and you will pick up fish with that popping cork. Second, you can swim your paddle tail just fast enough where you stay just on the top or just above those oyster beds. Once you start to slow down, you'll feel those oysters and reel a little bit faster, just enough to keep that paddle tail just over the oyster beds. Because you don't want to move away from them, because again, this is a natural structure area where these fish are going to ambush shrimp and bait fish. So use those popping corks. Keep your reel just fast enough to keep that paddle tail just above the oysters. But, you know, getting hung up in the oysters is just one of those things that happens to me all the time. I couldn't tell you how many I've lost in the oysters. Yeah, it happens. It's where you have to fish. You got to fish around them. You know, if the oyster bed's like this, you've got to fish on the outsides of them. If they're humped up, you know, usually there's a deep area on each side of that oyster bed that is really good to fish, where those predator fish will hang out and attack from below to get those the bait fish and the shrimp that are moving around that oyster bed. That oyster bed is almost like its own little ecosystem, and that's what you want to find. So don't move away from them. You just have to use a little bit different tactics working around those oyster beds. Also, try a topwater coming across those oyster beds. That is another great presentation to come over those oyster beds without getting snagged. And of course, a topwater, you can, you know, a couple inches of water and you can work that thing right over the top. So yeah, so use those and see if that doesn't help you out. So yeah, that was a very timely question. The guy just got it in. I thought I would lead off with him, and I really appreciate that. Captain Bob, great to see you. Guys, a couple of weeks ago, Captain Bob was on the here as a guest, and he was the one that broke the news about the Outdoor Radio Network. If you guys have not jumped on that yet, what are you waiting for? Get on iHeart and look up Outdoor Radio Network, and they've had some great episodes on there. Matter of fact, I was listening this afternoon, and there was a gentleman who was talking duck hunting and deer hunting out in Nebraska. So it's not only fishing, but it's hunting and the outdoors. So make sure you guys go and check that out. But Captain Bob, I appreciate you jumping on. And so again, guys, get those questions if you have any. And I may even throw some over to Captain Bob if he doesn't mind answering a couple of those. But guys, cheers. I getting a little dry tonight. Tonight it is some Knob Creek. It's the smoked maple Knob Creek, so I'm enjoying a little bit of that tonight since it's starting to cool off here a little bit. And this is where I really start getting into my bourbons and my whiskeys. I love it during the cooler weather. So a couple of other questions that have come in the last couple of weeks is, do I fish the jetties? Yes, I do fish the jetties. It's not very often that I go out that way in my kayak, and I will show you why. Let me pull up a map here, and I will share my screen. So as you guys know, right here, this is Merle's Inlet, okay? And right here, this little funky looking thing right here, this is the jetties. If you guys have never been there before, matter of fact, let me drill in just a little bit closer so you guys can see this. Merle's Inlet only has one entrance and exit in and out of the inlet, and it's right here. So this is where all the boat traffic goes in and out, right here in the jetties. And that is my main reason why I do not fish the jetties very often, because it gets very congested. The fishing is really good in and around these jetties, both on the inside and the outside of these jetties. The fishing is really good. I have fished kind of this area over in here, and I've also kind of fished this area over here, trying to stay out of the way of the boat traffic, because these boats, they will come whipping out of, this is called Main Creek. They will just come blowing through here and just wake anything in its path. So I try to stay out of their way. There's plenty of areas to fish. I have fished the jetties where I've walked up from Huntington Beach and came up here and fished the jetties. Now, my one tip for you guys who walk up and fish the jetties, the one thing that I see that is, I would call it, I don't know if I would call it a mistake, but you guys cast out so far away from the rocks, as far as you can chuck that thing away from the rocks. When I fish the jetties and just drop it right off of the rocks. These fish are going to be hanging right on these rocks, or right where, if the rock is on the bottom, they're going to be situated right up against those rocks, because that's where the cover and the protection is, and that's where the little bait fish, crabs, other little barnacles from where the sheep's head are going to be feeding on. So don't cast out here in the middle. Try to stay as close as you can right along these rocks. Even run a popping cork right along these rocks and let it drift and pop right along the rocks. Again, there's no need to throw out here into the deep channel, because these fish, the big flounder, sheep's head, they're going to be right along the rocks. There's a reason why when these boats stack up here, they're casting to the rocks. If they're casting here, they're casting up towards the structure. They're not anchoring here and casting towards the deep water. They're looking for the structure for the fish to be around. So that's kind of one tip that I would give you guys for fishing the jetties. But I fish the jetties just every once in a while. It's not really a place that I go to a lot just because of the boat traffic. Um, there is a question. I know I'm gonna butcher the name here. Henrik GTI. Hope I got that right. Does your bait colors change now? No, my bait colors don't change. It may change for some other people. The only time I am changing bait colors is if it's cloudy and overcast or a bright sunny day. That's what dictates my bait colors. Bright sunny days, I use whites and natural colors like natural shad colors or maybe a white with a green back or something like that, something that's real natural. On cloudy overcast days, I will start going to some darker colors. Matter of fact, I don't have, yes, I do have. Um, so, darker colors like a black and gold, if you guys can see that. So that would be great on a cloudy day to get that contrast. That is what you're looking for. On a kind of a partly cloudy, mostly sunny, the sun's kind of coming in and out a little bit. I'll go to like pinks, electric chickens, things like that. I also have a I should have been ready for this for this question. Colors like this color here, where it's got pink on the top or reddish on the top and maybe a chartreuse, something like that, that gives maybe kind of the false impression of a natural color, but something that's still going to give it a little bit of contrast on cloudier days. I'll throw something like this. But as far as weather changing, no, I don't change colors. Going into the fall, I'll change bait size, maybe go a little bigger because the finger mullet this time of the year is going to be bigger. You're still going to find, 3-inch finger mullet. They're still out there, absolutely. But there's going to be a lot of 5, 6, 7-inch finger mullet also. And the shrimp are going to be bigger. So again, smaller shrimp like the Z-Man Ned shrimp that may be 2.5 inches. You can still throw those, especially if we get a late season hatch. But right now it's shrimp season, so guys are out baiting shrimp and they're catching big shrimp right now. They're catching 3, 4, 5-inch shrimp, almost like a prawn. They're catching those shrimp, and that's what these fish are feeding on. So the shrimp is even bigger, so you can upgrade to larger profiles in the fall. And then as the fall kind of transitions into winter, then I'll kind of start to downsize my bait presentations again and start going to like the Z-Man Slim Swim, which is maybe like a 2.5 or 2 3/4. I think it's under 3 inches, but it's a little slim swim. And I'll go to smaller little shrimp and smaller profiles. So that's kind of how I do it. But with the changing of the weather, it is not color change. It may be a size change. Okay, so hopefully that answered your question. And but that's how I do it. I know some other guys, will do it a little bit different, but that's kind of my rule of thumb. So yeah. So kind of getting back, I also had another question of, do I fish Georgetown? Well, let's take a look at Georgetown now that I have this pulled up. Is this Georgetown? No, that is not Georgetown. I think I went too far. Hang on, guys. There we go. So this is Georgetown right here. So here's the actual town of Georgetown way up here in the corner. So here is like Muddy Bay and Winyah Bay right down in here. You launch, where I would launch is a place that is about right in here. There's a little river system and a dock and a landing that's right here. All of this water, there's a river here. I think this is the Black River, the Waccamaw. This is the sand pit coming right through here. Winyah Bay, all of this. This is North Inlet, Debadoo. All of this water gets squeezed down like a big funnel right out Winyah Bay. The currents going through Winyah Bay are so strong. Me on a kayak, I don't go out there because honestly, I would be swept out. If it's too strong for a kayak for me. Now, I do know some guys who fish Winyah Bay in a kayak, and a matter of fact, Steve, who is usually on the chat, I know he fishes Winyah, but I don't. I don't go down there just because of the currents. The currents are so strong, whipping through there. I just kind of stay away from it. Now I do there. I just kind of stay away from it. Now I do want to fish the Sandpit River, um, which is this right here. There is a landing right here off of 17, and this is the sand pit. So if any of you guys have fished the Sandpit River, let me know how the currents are because I would love to fish that. And I know that there's a little marina right here. I don't know if you can put in here or not, or if it's a private marina. So I would love to know if there's some areas to put in further up the sand pit if you guys know anything about the Sandpit River. But I would love to jump on that. I've never fished it. I've been down here for so long, but I have never fished the Sandpit River. But that's the reason why I don't fish Georgetown. It's just the currents are so strong that it's just for a kayak angler, it's pretty tough, pretty tough. So the third thing that I kind of want to cover tonight is when to change up presentations. So I was out fishing a couple of weeks ago, and I put out this video, and I will share my screen here. And I was fishing this little creek with a prawn star, and so you can see that I hook into a small little flounder with a prawn star. The tide's actually starting to drop out. Matter of fact, you can see, let me see if I get my cursor up here. This little bit of debris is starting to flush out of the creek here. And I was here maybe about 5 or 10 minutes, and I was thrown around. And again, I caught this little bitty flounder here. He was maybe 13 inches, and I'm kind of explaining right there. But now I'm changing up. So I had this feeling that there were some more fish in and around this little creek area. So I picked up a Z-Man diesel minnow, a paddle tail on a 1/4 ounce trout eye, just to see if there was anything else there that was maybe keying in on bait fish instead of a shrimp. And I think it was maybe the second or third cast. Now, obviously, through the magic of television and editing, I edited out those couple of casts, but I hooked into an 18-inch flounder. And just that little change from a shrimp to a paddle tail to give him something a little bit different to look at, there we go, hooked into him. That was what he was keying in on. So before you guys move and paddle away or pedal away from an area, change up your presentation a little bit. Give them a totally different look. You will probably pick up that scraggler fish that's hanging around there that's not keying in on shrimp. So again, great fish. Just one of those little things that I was like, you know what? I'm going right back over there. I'm going to throw that paddle tail. I'm going to get it right onto the bottom and see if there's anything that's maybe still hungry and lurking around. And lo and behold, there was. So, you know, that was a great day of fishing. I caught 2 18-inch fish that day. And they were, again, right at creek mouths on the bottom, 1/4 ounce jig head. And I believe they were both with the Z-Man paddle tails. So, again, guys, change up those presentations. Don't get married to any type of one lure. That's why I have 2 or 3 rods rigged up with different things. If you saw in the footage, I just reached right back. I grabbed my other rod and pulled it out and had the paddle tail on. I don't have to, take the time to cut the shrimp off and then, tie on something new and then take all that time. I just reach back, grab it, and bang, I was right back into the action. So, take a couple of rods with you and have different things rigged up. Like this weekend, when I go out for the tournament, I'm only going to have 3 rods rigged up, but those 3 rods are all going to have something totally different on it. So yeah, I know one's going to have a shrimp, one's going to have a paddle tail, and I'm going to start out with probably some top water depending on the wind. The wind looks like it's going to be a really nice weekend. The wind is going to be down a little bit. So that's why I want to start off with a little bit of a top water. But don't be afraid to change up those presentations before you leave an area. Guys, again, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw them into the chat box and I will get to them. If not, let's take a look at the weekend. It is looking really, really nice out. So I know the weather is going to be nice. I'm thinking, I know, let's see, Saturdays, maybe lows in the 50s, highs maybe just touching the lower 70s. And the tides, let's take a look at the tide charts here. So Saturday is right here. So let's take him down. So the tides Saturday and Sunday look like high tide's going to be, kind of a late morning, maybe around 10 o'clock, and then it's going to drop out the rest of the day. And then on Sunday, about 11 o'clock, and then drop out the rest of the day. So whether you like to fish the incoming tide or the outgoing tide, looks like you've got a chance to do both. And it's going to be a really nice weekend. Winds are going to be low. This is saying like 10 miles an hour here in Murrells Inlet. I know down around the Charleston area, tomorrow when I am pre-fishing, the winds are supposed to be 3 to 8 miles an hour. I keep checking the app, so it's going to be beautiful out there. And yeah, I am can't wait to get out on the water. Not being out on the water now for almost 2 weeks, I'm really jonesing to get get out on the water this weekend. So I'm not really going to give away too much of my strategy of how I'm going to be fishing the tournament because hey, it is a tournament. So I'll leave those strategies, right now for me. But I will be filming the pre-fishing tomorrow and then the tournament on Saturday. So hopefully I get on some fish and show you guys that video. But Captain Bob said, I missed the TFOV cash and rod result. Yeah, so a couple of weeks ago, when I first took out the cash and rod, I got as you guys know, a brand new cash and rod, and it's the medium light 7-foot fast action. And I also have the TFO medium light fast action. And I wanted to kind of compare both of these rods. I had them both tied up, both had the same lure on, and they were the Prawn Star. So I had everything the same. So I went out. The first thing that I noticed was the weight of the rod. The Icon Series cash and rod literally feels like a feather in my hand. I'm not exactly sure what that rod weighs. I can't remember what Ben said. Maybe I'm going to say 5 ounces. The TFO is heavier, but that was the first thing that I could feel right off the bat when I switched them out. As far as sensitivity goes, I think the Cashin was a little more sensitive. I could feel a little bit more of the bottom, at least I think. I'm going to run this test again. I don't know if it was almost like a false feeling, because I like the feel of that cashin rod, but I want to try it again. I don't think one time going out for a couple of hours is going to be enough to really judge them, side by side. I think I want to take them out again and really put them through the gears and really work through them again a couple of different times. But I'm telling you, I still love the TFO rods. This is not a bash or anything on TFO. I like the cashin rod also. The one thing that I did say, and I think I said it on the video, but now I'm not exactly sure, but I know TFO has a new line of rods out, and I think they're called the Bite series. Don't quote me on that, but I think it's called the Bite series I think I'm going to pick up one of those because I think it's that next level up from the Pro S. And so I want to try that next level up from the Pro S and then put the Icon series cashin rod and the Bite series together and see what those are. But the jury is still out. I like the feel of the cashin rod. I think rod fatigue throughout the day, I think you'll do better with the cashin rod. I don't think you'll get that rod fatigue, for being out there 5-6 hours and constantly making cast after cast after cast. I think the rod fatigue will be a lot less with the cashin. But again, the jury is still out on that. Brian said, off topic, but where did you get the hat? Actually got it up at CCU. There was, my son graduated from up there, my oldest son, and we would go up there for baseball games and football games, and I actually got it at CCU. But I think you can, because it's a Chanticleer hat, I think you can get these at like Dick's Sporting Goods here in town, and they have them in a couple of places. But yeah, I got mine actually up at the university, the student union up there. D. Gilmore, Chris, do you throw your line against the current or with the current? Was fighting the tide in the inlet the other day and was having a heck of a time managing my line in the kayak. Yeah, so we addressed that a couple of weeks ago. That is a great question. So what I try to do is position myself down current and throw my lure up current and let it work back down in a very natural presentation. That's how I work my lures in line. When I'm going cross current, that's usually when I'm working like a popping cork. I try to stay as close as I can to the bank and work out in front of me, and that's how I'm working it. But if I'm using a popping cork, I'll throw kind of along the grass and let it go down that grass line. But I can't do that if I'm throwing it straight in front of me and then that cork is coming back towards me. I have also done it the opposite direction with a popping cork, is I've let it out just in front of the kayak and I've let it drift away from me until it's, 20, 30 yards away, and then I'll reel it back to me and I'll let it drift back out. But yeah, usually I am throwing up current and letting it come back to me. 90% of the time, that's the way I'm doing it. Can I do that every time that I'm out kayak fishing? No. I'm not going to be in the right position to throw that to get it up current in that way. I'm just working my best, because if you're throwing it against the current, I've seen bait fish working against the current, especially right up against the grass. So yes, it's still natural presentation, but the majority of the time, 99% of the time, those bait fish are not going to expend that energy that they have to work against the current. So they're going to be going with the current, and that's how I am going to be working my bait, is with the current, to make it look as natural as possible. So Steve got here late. Yeah, tough fishing today, man. I'm actually going out tomorrow, so hopefully, it's a little bit better. I think was the full moon last night or tonight or something like that. So I'm not big on fishing, the full moon, but with the tournament being on Saturday, being a couple of days after, don't really have a whole lot of choice. We're just going to work it and try to get on some reds. But um, it kind of is what it is. But Steve, I'm glad you made it, and it's always good to see you in here, buddy. So guys, it is 8:36. Gosh, I don't know what I'm looking at here, but I'll give it another minute or two if you guys have another question. And but I appreciate you guys jumping on here tonight. Again, I never fished last weekend. I was up in Fayetteville with some family, and so I am really looking forward to fishing. Again, I'm going to be taking off at Garris Landing, which is just north of Charleston, kind of in and around what is it, that Bulls Bay, Cape Romaine area, Garris Landing. That's where I'm taking off from, and that's where the tournament is this weekend. So that's where I'm going to be fishing. So that's kind of it's a redfish tournament. It's a 2 fish limit with a slot of 15 to 27 inches. So those are kind of the rules for the tournament this weekend. Jake, good to see you, bud. He said, went off the surf last Friday and caught some big reds, 22, 27 inches. Awesome, man. Awesome. Yeah, I tell you, this is the time of the year, now that this water temperature is really starting to cool down. But I think the water temperature, I looked it up a couple days ago, was lower 70s. Steve, if you happen to know what the water temperature is, throw that up into the chat box, because I think it's in the lower 70s right now. But once we really start getting into kind of the 60s and the lower 60s and touching 50s, that's when these reds are really going to start schooling up, and you can find these bigger schools of reds and really have a good time out there. So, guys, I really appreciate each and every one of you. And we'll do this again next week, and we'll just kind of keep it going. As long as you guys are showing up, I'll be here. I'll be sipping on a little beverage. I hope you guys are enjoying the beverage. I appreciate everybody's questions, and we're going to do it again in 1 week. I will see you guys next Thursday. Appreciate you. Tight lines.